Welcome to the IT Club.
I tried to grab some more people, but
That's all right. If you can, that would be awesome, though.
yeah. Well, go ahead.
We don't have that many people here right now.
Well, I mean, one guy was in it at one point. He was playing Magic, and I guess that it was more important than well, we actually have a meeting if you want to come this semester, but he hadn't been to one of the semesters.
It's fine. We do different things each month.
He get through Cisco, so it's like he knows some stuff. So I'm like, come on, be interact stuff. Anyway,
All right. Well,
I might tell him about the 12:30.
today I'm going to be talking to you guys how to build a computer.
Okay.
So, if you guys never knew how the basic components of a computer, you got the CPU, which is the central processing unit. What it does is it does all the calculations that makes your display, shows things, and makes everything work. You got the motherboard, which interconnects everything together. You hook your CPU into there, you hook everything else onto the motherboard, and it interacts with the CPU, allowing you to see things on your display and all the different types like that. You got the RAM, which essentially stores information that your computer is currently working with. And you got the power supply, which translates AC power into DC because computers run off of DC power. You need a case if you want it to look pretty, and you need storage if you want it to run any operating system. So essentially the buying decision is to first look for what CPU you want. There are many different types of CPUs out there, and depending on the type of CPU you get and the socket type that they use, you're going to choose your motherboard because your motherboard works specifically for that type of CPU you buy. Once you buy your motherboard, you would know exactly what type of RAM you're able to store and put inside of the motherboard, and you would know what type of storage you're able to hook up to it, and you would know which case you need to use to put in the motherboard, because different cases works for different form factor motherboards. Like there's mini ITX and there's ATX motherboards, and so you basically have to know what motherboard you have in order to buy the other stuff out there. And once you know all the different components you're going to have hooked up to it, you can purchase a power supply for your computer depending on the amount of power you're going to be needing to draw from the, like the wattage. Any questions?
So the motherboard, so any CPU can fit into any motherboard?
No. You have to know what CPU you have and the socket type they have. You can see some CPUs over here if you want me to go grab one. And basically, the socket type is what determines what you're allowed to use. I don't know exactly where they are. But yeah, the CPUs, they have like these connectors at the bottom. And the connector type is what allows you to run the CPU with the motherboard. If it's different, you won't be able to put the CPU in the motherboard. And if it's different, the motherboard may not even be able to talk to it, which means all your components and stuff that you hook up to your motherboard will not work.
So you gotta have the CPU and then know what kind of.
Once you decide on your CPU, you'll be able to go about. You will be able to go about purchasing. I was looking. Well, this is a socket.
Yeah.
So you can see that's kind of like what a socket looks like. They have different pins where the CPU pins connects to.
Okay.
And it looks like this one's integrated.
Yeah, that one's integrated.
That's wild.
Some PCs do that.
Yeah, I know. I just never worked on one.
Yeah. Like Apple's computers do
Are
that.
they all? Okay. Yeah, I don't do that.
And apparently Dell does too.
Yeah, I don't know. See, Dell's the one I'm running my Boom boot on. That I have the Ubuntu on.
Mhm.
I don't use it too long.
So,
Thermal between the.
yeah, the thermal paste. The thermal paste basically allows the CPU top to connect with the fan heatsink, which allows the heat to be transferred into the heatsink.
It's like glue, super glue.
Essentially, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not glue. It doesn't stick.
Yeah.
But it allows the heat to transfer up to the CPU fan, allowing it to cool down more efficiently. So I'll move on to the next slide here. And deciding on which CPU you want, there's Intel, which is very efficient, but it's very expensive as well. You would probably find the Intel processors to be clocked slower than the AMD processors, but they run faster at that clock speed. Like the programs you run and everything is much smoother on an Intel processor at the clock speed which they have rated. On AMD processors, they're cheap, but they eat a lot of energy. So essentially, if you're going to be running it 24/7, you may not want AMD.
Now, yeah, exactly. But, okay, so I haven't had any experience with AMD 10s, but have you had any issues with the AMDs not lasting near as long as Intel?
I have not. I've heard that they run just as well.
Okay, I've never owned an AMD, I just worked on a lot of other people's computers.
I have AMD computers at work, but
But
I never built them.
So,
they're good.
so is a AMD 10, is it compared to like a Intel Core i7?
I would think so. They have it FX something or another. So like if you were to search Newegg for AMD CPU, you find a lot of them. The thing about AMD processors is they don't always have graphics processors built into them. So you're going to have to buy a graphics processor separate. How you know if it has a graphics processor is if it says a GPU on it, or a CPU, whatever, or APU. That was what it was. It was APU. So like if you search for this, for APU, you see this processor right here, it says it has an APU.
A series APU?
If it has an APU, that means it also can do graphics, and you can get a motherboard that supports HDMI and VGA and all that. On Intel, if you were to search for Intel i7 or whatever type you want, you would see that they all have like HD graphics, Intel HD graphics. And if it says Intel HD graphics, that means it's going to have some graphics processing into it, which you could buy a motherboard that supports HDMI and all that for them. Most of them have Intel HD graphics.
I guess 10s are like and it's compared to the i7.
So if you want graphics, the only things that they will help with is like playing videos on YouTube or just seeing a screen. It's not very good for gaming. You can do very small gaming, but not like the big name gaming Crysis and stuff like that. You won't be able to play those games with these integrated graphics. Another thing you need to think about in choosing a processor is the number of cores they have. Essentially, they've gotten to the place where they can no longer add more processing power into a CPU. So what they decided to do was add more CPUs within the CPU, which they're calling cores. So a core essentially, like if it's a quad-core processor, you got 4 different CPUs built into the processor. And that allows you to essentially run more programs at the same time faster. You cannot run a single program and have it be faster unless they were to design it for threading, because operating systems nowadays are smart enough to put different threads on different cores of the CPU, allowing it to run faster.
Isn't that one though, the i7?
Yes.
4 cores threaded though, right? They call it 8 processors?
No, it's a 4-core processor, which means you could, like if you had 4 different processors that are running on a single thread,
Yeah.
it'll run those 4 different processes really fast. If you had one process that had 4 threads, it'll run it pretty fast. If you have one process that was single threaded and you were the only one in that run process, it won't be that fast. It'll be basically as fast as if you were to have a computer that only had 1 core.
Yeah.
Then there's also hyperthreading. What hyperthreading does essentially is it allows the processor to process multiple threads really quickly. Intel is the only one that I know so far that has hyper-threading. If you were to buy an i5, they don't have them. Only the i7s have hyper-threading. And AMD doesn't have any sort of hyper-threading as far as I know. The CPUs usually come with a fan, which allows you to keep the CPU cool. They don't come with the little thermal paste that you need to put on the CPU, which you need to buy separately. And you must have that, otherwise it won't be able to cool the CPU very well.
Thermal paste.
Yeah, the thermal paste. It basically allows the heat to transfer into the fan.
That's what I was talking about, look like it comes in a bottle of soup.
Yeah.
Or a syringe or something. But it's a liquid kind of thing, paste, you said paste. My bad.
Yeah, it's a paste.
It is. You got some back here. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I ordered some, but I don't think we ever used it.
Yeah, we do have some thermal paste back there, but don't take it out and pour any of it out, please. We don't own that. It is cheap. You can get them for
Well,
like,
that's true. It's not cheap when you ask for it at the school and it takes them 3 weeks to get it. But-
yeah, that is true.
And you have to.
Because there's not any computer stores here in Huntsville.
I don't know, Gigaparts might carry it.
Yeah, they might, but
I talked
they're-
to them the other day,
aren't they like dying sometime
but I
soon?
have no idea. I'm gonna go down.
Like pretty much every computer store is dying.
Well, it's
Radio
locally-
Shack is dying.
It's locally owned and it's the only one. You know, I was talking to them on the phone right before I bought this free computer, and because they have a case that'll let you can connect any type of hard drive to it. It has flash drive, so you can like prepare other people's hard drives and stuff. And then because Best Buy sells a case that'll put your whole hard drive in, just like so it looks like one of these. But I don't want that. And Gigapart's the only one that has it. And I'm like, oh, are y'all hiring? I'm like, no, we're playing fine. They
I have
just-
something for fixing hard drives myself.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, what's that? Oh, is that the case I'm talking about?
no, this is not a case at all.
Oh, that's
You get an external power. You get a little external power brick, and then you get a little USB port that plugs into your computer, and then you can hook up IDE, SATA, and
So that's
Wheelio. This is
I'll come up there. I mean,
Alright.
I'm about to go buy one of something like that.
but it's cheap. You can buy them off Amazon for like $14. So moving on, you got the motherboard next. Essentially, the motherboard interconnects all the different components and connects them to the CPU. You need,
Yeah, that's what
but the motherboard has specs which tells you what type of RAM you can hook up into it. So CPUs also have that. However, if the motherboard doesn't support it, it's most likely that the BIOS won't even see it, and your system may not work with it. So you would want to look at the motherboard specs to see what type of RAM you can hook up to it. The storage support is also determined by the motherboard. Normally today, you would find things that are SATA. That's the newest standard. There used to be IDE and ATA, which is an upgraded version of IDE. You can use the same connector for both. The motherboard also determines the external connections, like your Ethernet cables, if it has gigabit Ethernet built in, if it has USB 3, USB 2, if you have ports to connect USB 3 ports in the front of your case, and all that different type of stuff, your motherboard determines all that. Most motherboards comes with these slots here, which are essentially PCI slots, and that allows you to extend your computer. So you can hook up more hard drives to your computer by hooking up a SAS card or a SATA card, whatever you want to hook up. You can plug it in there. You can add more Ethernet ports. You can add FireWire. You can add USB. All for those ports right there.
Those ports right there.
Yeah, the 4 or 5 different ports there. 6, yeah, 6. Sorry. So, depending on your motherboard, they have PCI X16, PCI X1, PCI regular, and PCIe. So depending on your motherboard, you would have different options for that. All right, so moving along. The RAM, which stands for random access memory. Essentially, whenever you load a program into your CPU, it has a little cache of its own. Anything that doesn't fit in the cache, it pushes out to the random access memory, which is essentially temporary storage for that is high speed for programs that are running in your system. If you were to turn off your computer, whatever is stored in the RAM is erased. There is a way to freeze it. Like if you got dry ice, you can freeze the RAM and pull it out and plug it into a different computer to pull whatever is in the RAM out. That is a trick which was discovered, I think it was in 2005. Not many people do that, but it's mostly forensics people who would do that. That essentially, once you lose power, it's not able to hold the charge because essentially they're running capacitors inside of the chips. Each little chip has a gajillion capacitors in them, and depending on the state, whether it's charged or not charged, that's what represents the 1 or the 0 or whatever you want to call it for the memory that's stored there.
Well, if it loses power like that, how do they go into it?
Well, whenever you power on your machine, it doesn't lose power because your machine's providing power. But as soon as you turn off your machine, it loses power.
Well, I'm saying the forensics guys go in and read them after they turn them off.
Well, freezing it, if they freeze it with dry ice.
You are talking about freezing it while it's powered up.
Yeah, you freeze it while it's powered up, and then you can pull it out. And the freezing somehow keeps the electricity inside of it, somehow.
Once it's off, it's off.
Once it's off, you can't come in and pull that off the rim.
Yeah, you can't. Once it's
I was
off.
wondering if it hung in the state or something.
If you freeze it, it will. That's a chemistry thing.
It's called ball.
Yeah, for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people are okay with getting 4 gigabytes to 16. I have 32 on that one machine that I built because I do a lot of virtual machines, which is essentially running a whole bunch of operating systems. So it's really up to you as to what you need. The power supply, essentially you would want to research as to what components you have or what components you're going to need in the future and how much electricity those components will use. There are good sites out there. If you just Google for a PSU calculator, you'll find a calculator that'll allow you to add components. Like you can add hard drives, you can add your type of CPU you use and all that type of stuff, and it will calculate out. You would need something around this wattage. And then you would go about buying that PSU for your computer because you kind of know what the wattage is that you need. So the last thing here is the case. Yeah, that's where you can actually get really fun and they're Star Wars space station shaped cases out there. Whatever you want, you can find a case for it. This is just a small factor case rather than being sideways up and down or like that case on your computer there. It's a box. So the different things that the case can come with is they usually come with fans to keep your system cool. If they don't come with fans, you're going to want to buy fans to put into your case because then your system will be holding heat inside the case and essentially will overheat your system. So you're going to need a fan, at least for the case. The Intel CPUs, they come with a fan. I don't know about AMD. I haven't really messed with AMD much, but they may not come with a fan. And the fan that you can buy depends on the motherboard you have for both the case fans and also for the fans that you plug into your CPU. You can also get front connectors like sound cards. You can get USB ports, USB 3 ports, FireWire ports, depending on the case you they will come with that stuff. They also determine like how many drives you can fit into the case. They have certain number of slots that you can fit drives into, whether it be 3.5 or 5.25 inches big. The 3.5 inches is a regular size hard drive, and the 5.25 inches is the size for a CD drive, like a Blu-ray drive or whatever you want to put in there. So after you buy your case, you're pretty much good to go. If you need a... Oh, I forgot about the storage. How could I forget about that? Okay, so for storage, you got solid-state drives, you got hard drives, and you got hybrid. Hybrid is essentially joining a solid-state drive with a hard drive, and they essentially put stuff that you access most on the SSD part of the drive and stuff that you don't access that much on the hard drive. And that allows you to get a lot of capacity for cheap. However, it's up to the machine itself as to how much it stores on the SSD portion. So in my use cases, I would never buy a hybrid
Yeah,
drive.
I did, it was an 8 gig, it supposedly stores the operating system so that it'll load faster with the new Windows 8, but it obviously didn't work. I mean,
Yeah, it's supposed to, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing, I mean, they gave me my money, Samsung gave me my money back for it, because, it just, I guess the SSD just burned out, and I didn't know how to test it. I mean,
well, if it's a hybrid, it's hard to test because
Yeah.
it's built into the drive. It acts as one drive.
Exactly, yeah, I know, that was the whole problem.
So essentially, what I would do is I would buy a 8 gigabyte, 64 gigabyte SSD,
Right,
install my operating system on that, and then put all the big data on the hard drive. SSDs are very expensive,
yeah,
but they're very fast. Once you get used to them, you're never going to want to go back to hard drives.
yeah, they're real low storage amounts too. Well, I mean, I think they're
Well-
at 240 now, but.
They got 1 terabytes. They got 1 terabytes out there.
Yeah, but that's like $1,000.
Yeah, let me.
External SSD?
I'm just doing a little search on it. What?
You get an external SSD?
You can. I don't know of any out there, but you can. So for 1 terabyte SSD, it's about $400.
1 terabyte?
Yep, right here,
That's
Samsung.
come down a lot.
And for 1 terabyte hard drive, oops, too many HDs in there. That's $54. So you can see the price difference there. It's a huge price difference. So I'll hurry this up. So, because her class is about to start. So you got the hard drive and the SSD. Every build that I do, I have SSDs in it now because they're fast, and I enjoy booting my system and having it be there within 10 seconds.
So how come it's cheaper?
It's not cheaper because
I'm saying like, how do we do cheaper SSDs?
you can get cheaper SSDs, but they're lower capacity. So if you need a GPU for gaming, or if you want to do high-speed calculations, like you could use like it for Bitcoin mining, if you ever heard of Bitcoins, they are able to do the hash calculations really fast. If your system doesn't have integrated GPUs in it, you would need a GPU. Or if you need multi-monitor. You can run multi-monitor with the integrated GPU, but it's not going to be as fast. It will essentially cut down the speed of the GPU in half. So that could make your videos play slowly. It could do all kinds of different things. So I recommend you get a dedicated GPU if you're going to be wanting to do multi-monitors.
Yeah.
So
Talking about multi, like more than 2?
yeah, more than one monitor.
Okay.
What brand would you prefer?
What
Brand?
brand for GPUs? I usually do NVIDIA, but AMD also does pretty good.
Yeah, I've got an NVIDIA, it's NVIDIA, 2 gigabyte, and I'm running a PC, I'm a VGA monitor, an HDMI monitor, and then a laptop monitor itself. With 2 gigs of, extra, dedicated. And, I play Skyrim,
Oh, that's nice.
so it works.
So this is one of the machines I built. I might as well show off my stuff. before I leave. So this machine is my monster server that contains all my TV shows I watch. I got the ability to plug in 24 hard drives inside of the front panel, and it's all hot swappable. Right now, I only have 8 at the bottom and then 4 at the top, adding up to 32 terabytes of storage.
Do you have a computer in your house?
Yes, it's in my room.
A what?
32 terabytes of storage on this machine
Oh,
right now.
Right.
I can add more. I got more than 8 slots available for more hard drives, so I can add more. But I don't need it right now, so I'm holding back. Although it would be nice to have 100 terabytes of storage. Then I can store the whole internet. I got an SSD and a hard drive over here. This is the hard drive, and below it is the SSD.
What kind of processor?
I got an Intel i7 3.4 gigahertz quad core. It's pretty fast. And I don't have a GPU in this one because it's not a gaming machine. It's more of a server for playing videos. I actually hook it up to my TV, my big TV, and I watch TV shows off of it. So this is the front of it. You can see all the different drive bays that are available. I got an extra USB hub at the top that plugs into the motherboard and provides me with 10 ports for USB 2. It has USB 3 in the back and stuff like that. As I said, only the top ones are filled with hard drives. Each drive bay at the top contains 3 terabytes. I have it rated so that it kind of keeps it safe. Uh-huh.
What kind of UPS do you have? That's what I was going to ask.
The uninterruptible power supply.
Yeah.
It's a 1500, I believe, UV or VA, whatever it's called. This is my gaming machine.
You guys will, are this for everyone?
Yeah, you can.
Well, yeah.
I need to keep some though, but
Oh, no, just, you guys speak however you want it
and hand it out to people.
and hand it out to people. Oh, I need to talk to you, for something. So, you have 5 more minutes to wrap it up?
All right,
Okay.
I'll be done in like 1 minute.
1 minute? Oh, that's much
Yep.
better.
So this machine, I have a SSD and a hard drive up here, and then I got 2 hard drives that are bigger below. So that's my gaming machine. It has 32 terabytes of RAM. It's 3.2 gigahertz quad core i5. So it doesn't have hyper-threading, but for gaming you don't really need it.
You don't need hyperthread.
I'm told that gaming actually runs slower if you have hyper-threading enabled.
Yeah, I heard that too. Some of them.
So if you're doing a gaming machine, you may want to get an i5.
Really?
Yep. But if you're doing calculations like video conversions or stuff like that, you do want an i7 because it does increase the speed of video conversions.
What operating system are you checking?
I'm running macOS X and Ubuntu and some other Linux distros and Windows 8.
All at the same time.
Dual booting and virtual machines.
No, but I mean, what's your base OS for your server?
My server, this machine right here is running Ubuntu.
Okay.
So, Ubuntu. It's a Linux distribution. So, that's it. That's all I have. So, any questions? No? Okay, I guess that's it.